Let's talk next year. We're going to preview this weekend to close out the show, but we already know the results for this season. Max wrapped up the drivers. Red Bull has already wrapped up constructors, but we've seen McLaren, to your point, make phenomenal gains to the point where Lando felt, hey, we could have won 2 races last time out in Qatar. Mercedes and Russell said, we felt we had the pace. So when you look towards the remainder of the year, we've already seen Ferrari, the lone team that has broke Red Bull's streak. But who is their toughest competition moving forward for next year? Or should we expect more Red Bull dominance?
Well, I think you'd have to say McLaren right now. Just the trajectory they've been on, the fact that the concept went towards what Red Bull have done. It's the whole if you can't beat them, join them type thing. They've got 2 great drivers there who are, I think, Piastri's getting the most out of Norris. But this is where going into next year in a really great position, because you've got 3 teams there, and you could make a case for all of them being the one. Obviously, the caveat to it all is Red Bull are also making gains on their side, and we know they're a pretty damn good team. But I don't know. I mean, I would say McLaren at this point, but Mercedes, they're really stung from where they've been, and the struggles they've had this year. Lewis Hamilton wants that chance to win that 8th and beat Max to take a title off of Max after 21. So I think if you were putting it in order, it'd be McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari, but Lawrence might have a different take.
Yeah, I'd actually put Mercedes ahead of McLaren because they aren't that far apart from each other at the moment in terms of performance. But Mercedes have a bunch of stuff on this car locked in, just in terms of the way the chassis is designed, suspension pickup points, all sorts of stuff that they cannot change because changing a chassis mid-season is one, extremely expensive on the budget cap, and even under non-budget cap seasons you'd rarely do it. So they know a bunch of stuff that they can get, and they've also learned this year just from adapting what was a fundamentally flawed starting point. They've been able to unlock performance as well, so they're pretty confident that once they can change some of those bigger jigsaw pieces and get those in place, they're going to make a step. Now, we've heard that before from so many teams in the history of Formula One, and it hasn't quite happened. But that's why my feeling is that next year, especially with just the resources and what we know that team can do versus what McLaren has done is very, very impressive. But I feel like McLaren is probably closer to its ceiling, and also they seem to have followed more of a Red Bull route. I think we're going to have a lot of cars looking like the Red Bull, but McLaren have done that. And when you're following a similar route, when very similar parts of the car are coming on, body parts are coming onto the car like 4 or 5 races later, you're always 4 or 5 races behind. And I feel like McLaren might struggle to close that gap, whereas the likes of Mercedes and Ferrari have made some big gains with their car. Just because of the size of those teams and the resources, I feel like actually going into next year, if I was going to put money on it, my money would be on them. I'm not going to give you odds, but my money would be on them.
Mercedes' new floor this week? Is that what I read? Is that what I heard?
I'm not sure. I haven't seen.
I'm not breaking news. You know how the internet can be.
Quite possibly. The only problem is now is that if you're bringing parts to the car now, you're limited gains. Because you've only got these handful of races left.
Five races.
There you go. 5
this weekend.
Slip of mine there. But yeah, 5 races left, and so what you bring there, unless you can directly transfer that onto next year's car, that development time and everything is actually better put just straight into next year's car. So I think the only one which we know is going to be a big change is Haas. They're bringing a pretty substantial upgrade, but that's because they've kind of got a little bit caught behind in the nature of their team and farming bits out to Dallara to produce. That's just where they've ended up. So I'd be surprised if Mercedes have a major upgrade, but yeah, there's always little tweaks and stuff, and they'll learn from that, and that will all be going with a view to next year.
And Lewis, he was very direct about it. He set the team. He set Mercedes that we have to have the best 6 months development we've ever had since I've been here, and I think that shows you where his expectation level is at. And given Mercedes' history, you would back them to have that, to have that kind of off season. Just on Ferrari as well, Lawrence is absolutely right. They've been in a better place. I've been really impressed with, if you compare Ferrari 12 months ago, the strategy is much better. The operation seems a lot better. So I think
the drama is down. They've turned the drama meter down.
Way down. And as you mentioned, they're the only team to beat Red Bull this year. So I think they're still a bit of a wild card in that mix, but things are much better there overall health-wise than they were. So I think if they can get themselves back in that position, Fred Vasseur seems to have steadied the ship quite a bit. So I don't think we can write them off at all at this point.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.